Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I make a Belle inspired watch band from start to finish. This one came out a little interesting, so stick around and find out a few things you should and shouldn't do when creating a watch band. So personally, I love using Adobe Illustrator to design my watch bands. I know this program is pretty complicated and it won't work for everybody, so if there's another program that you use, that is totally fine. I just prefer to use Adobe Illustrator. So I have this watch template that I bought off of Etsy, and what I like to do when I start a file like this is I like to put all the little icons or the pieces of the watch down in the bottom, and then that way I can easily grab them. For this file in particular, I started with the Belle icon. I just thought it was super cute, and then I found the signature, so I was working off of that. I knew I wanted those to go together on one side, but then for the other side I thought maybe I would use the different characters from the movie. As you can see here, I actually started working on this band. I put them all near the top, and then I didn't actually like how it was flowing, so I just rearranged them until I found a design that I really liked. One of the things I wasn't quite sure about with this particular design was that the detailed line work was not going to show through. So some of these designs actually ended up being a little too thin. The lines were just not thick enough. They didn't engrave thick enough to take the ink. They didn't engrave thick enough to really show up on the silicone watch. So the laser just didn't either pick up on the line because it was too thin, or whatever the reason was, it just didn't engrave quite right. So that's just something to consider when doing a design like this. So once you're done completing your design and you save it out as an SVG file, you're going to want to import it into your Glowforge program. You're going to want to put your watch band into your Glowforge. I use this jig that I also bought the template for off of Etsy. I will link it below in the description. Once that's in there and the preview shows up on your screen, I try to align it to my watch band, and this is actually where this project went wrong a little bit, because my Glowforge needs to be recalibrated, which I didn't know at the time, so the camera's a little bit off. And I'll show you in another video how to recalibrate your Glowforge. It's really not that hard, you just have to have some time and the materials to do it. Once you've adjusted your design, set it to an uncertified material with a thickness of 0.105. Then you'll want to set the engrave settings to be at a speed of 600, precision power 75, lines per inch 675, and the focus height at 0.105. Don't forget to set the watch band outlines to ignore. You do not want those to engrave, and you do not want those to cut. You just want your design to engrave. Then click print and you're ready to go. As you can see, this is where that Glowforge camera calibration is very important. As this starts to engrave, you can see that it's just really off-centered. So even though I did my best to center it in the preview, it still just is completely off. After I clean this off, I'll talk a little more about it later in the video, but as this started to engrave, I could tell that some of these lines were too thin. So you see in the face of Lumiere, it didn't pick up on the line because it was too thin. Some of the signature lines were just a little thin. These issues could have been avoided if I had just thickened up my lines a little bit more. So this was a little bit of a trial design, and that's just something to keep in mind when you are designing these watch bands and engraving on silicone like this. To clean this, I'm just spraying on rubbing alcohol and then using a toothbrush to scrub away all that grime, and I just repeat until it's all clean. So here's what the watch band looks like when it's all dried and cleaned. Upon inspection, before coloring this in, it does look like some of the lines were too thin, so maybe some of her arm didn't quite get engraved the way I wanted it to. Some of the signature, the lines are a little bit thin. Lumiere, his little face didn't quite get etched in. Looks like everyone else was pretty good. I'm not seeing any other big issues. All the other characters look okay to me. Belle was maybe a little detailed, but I do want to fill it in and see where we're at once it's all filled in. So let's get our markers out. I do use these paint markers. I don't think it matters what, I mean, it doesn't matter what brand you use, it doesn't matter. You just want to make sure you get oil-based markers. So I'm going to try a black. I'm going to try a black marker. I haven't used it in a while, so hopefully there's enough ink in here. But we're just gonna go ahead and fill in. Just want to make sure you're getting it in all these lines. And we're kind of past the point of like, right now I'm not quite sure if this design is going to work. So this is a little bit, this is going to be a little bit trial and error. This may not come out. But because the watch already engraved in a way, I always like to try, I like to try new things. That's what this channel is for. It was good to see that, you know, this design was too thin. The lines are too thin on some of the designs, and that they need to be, probably the mirror is going to look the best because it was a filled in object versus just an outline. Let that dry, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys how to wash it off. So now that we've given that a little bit of time to dry, what we're going to do is take a paper towel and put some rubbing alcohol on it. I'm just going to gently wipe away the excess paint. So whatever's engraved should stay. And you don't want to get down in there and like scrub it really hard. You just kind of want to gently wipe it away off the top here. What I like to do is to have a couple of these. It's sort of do it a few times and then get a clean side and keep doing it until it sort of stops coming off like this. And in areas where, like in her ears, where there's going to be more paint captured, you will have more coming out there. So as you can see, some of the lines are just too thin. The B, like in the signature, it's just not quite thick enough. So I think what I could do is just go back and thicken the design a bit, or just thicken these areas. So like her left arm, and looking at her, it's the right side. So her left arm, like her arms in general, probably some of those little detail spots just didn't get engraved too well because they were just too thin, I imagine. And then some of the signature. And I think this, because of the misalignment of the camera and it got bumped to the side, I think that's what that is. So I think that would have engraved fine and taken the ink fine if it was more centered. Overall, it's not terrible. I think it's okay, but it is off-centered. And you don't really see her arm there. It's kind of missing. So that's what I would change. I would just go back and thicken up the lines a bit and make sure everything is a little bit, like, just make sure everything's gonna engrave a little bit better on there. But from afar, I think that's still really cute. So let's do this other side. And I always set some computer paper down, just like paper. That can get messy, that can be thrown away and behind it. Because I find it's just easier to lay it down and wipe it like this than it is to hold it. And then you don't want to get a mess on your table. So it's not pretty, but it's a little bit of a messy process. But it looks good. Actually, this side's turning out a lot better than I thought. The only areas that are looking to be an issue are the areas that I could tell from the engraving, so Lumiere's face. But all the other areas look just fine. Yeah, you know, I think that actually worked really well, except for Lumiere's face, but that was an engraving problem. So I think if you just thicken up some of his lines, I think everyone else's lines, for the most part, so you can see it like in the books. Sorry, my camera keeps shaking because I keep. But there are some little details. Well, some of these little detail lines. For some reason, Mrs. Potts and Chip have the best lines. So the mirror, when you can do a bolder engraving like that, I think that's the way to go. Overall, I think this design is really cute. I think I probably will attempt it again, make a few changes to the design, thicken up those lines, make sure my Glowforge is recalibrated, and then try again. Even though it's not perfect, I hope you did enjoy this tutorial. I think it is important to show that sometimes things go a little askew, and it's okay, and we always learn from these things, so I always think it's beneficial even if it's not flawless. Please leave a like on this video, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel if you like this content. Leave a comment below, let me know what else you'd like to see, and I hope I'll catch you in the next one.